neighbor. Today we're flying low. That's right. Usually we're flying high above Willsee Wood School, but today, well, the winds were really high, so we have to fly low. And boy, you always get a little nervous when you're flying in the wind like this, and I'm surprised that these guys could do pile driving in the wind. And usually, I think it's a law, but I don't think they're breaking the law, but usually there's a flag on the top of that pile driver, but there was no flag, and there's no really leaves on the tree to show you how hard the wind was blowing, but boy, was it blowing hard. But I just kind of stayed about this level and maybe a little higher, but I didn't want to get too high because you don't want this drone blowing away. And boy, when you fly in winds this high, you're taking your risks. So I heard the pile driving all the way down that block. Way down there is Meals on Wheels, and believe it or not, you could hear this pile driver all over the island, almost all over, I should say. And every time that hammer comes down, boom, 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 yeah, about every couple seconds or so, that thing is just pile driving that big piece of concrete into the ground. So you can see they got a lot of piles to drive into the ground to bedrock, and it is loud. So they are doing this on a weekend when the kids are playing baseball. I'm surprised that they still have baseball games, but everybody gets to hear this pile driver. Boom, boom, yeah. So this neighborhood is getting subjected to loud piles and driving. Good thing it's not day and night, but it is on the weekends, and I'm sure they'll be glad to see this pile driver off of this job site. But for now, it is driving and it is not stopping. These guys have really just kept going and going. And as a matter of fact, after I left on this late day, they kept working. So I take my hat off, or should I say, I take my hard hat off to these hard-working pile drivers. That's what you call these guys. And they're really the unsung heroes. The iron workers get all the credit, and the fire sprinkler fitters and the electricians. But the pile drivers, well, they're left out of the equation. And if it wasn't for them, well, our buildings would just sink right into the mud. So thank you to the pile drivers. You can see there the foundation's already getting set for the piles they already drove. I guess that's the correct term. They've already drove those piles into the ground. So you can see the baseball players were out on this day. So there is a good look of all of Willsee Wood School. You got the new portables that they just installed. They tore out the old Willsee School wood right there and installed all those portables. So I'm sure all the people from the old Willsee School just moved right on over there. So their new administration building, I think that is the rumor, that the kids are going to stay in the portables, and this is going to be administration buildings and maybe an auditorium. I'm not sure on that. A lot of my videos I'm not really sure on, but I know for a fact this is administration building. So you can see the foundation is already, I guess you would call that rebarred. Yep, I saw the guys installing the rebar, and boy, that's another unsung hero. You got so many unsung heroes in the building trade. Those rebar guys, they're bent over all day, pushing and pulling and tying that rebar. And if it wasn't for them, the buildings would not stay up. So you have the inspectors that inspect the rebar, and I'm sure there is an inspector on this job site that inspects these pile drivers' work, before it goes in. They probably have to inspect the piles themselves. You know, in fire sprinklers, we always have to have a weld inspection before we stick it in the air. So I'm sure all these piles get inspected. You can see that there's one pile on the ground ready to go. So you see that concrete, that long concrete pile on the ground, and each one of those bolts sticking out of the ground, believe it or not, is a pile they've already driven. So each little dark area you see is one of those 20-foot piles that just get driven into the ground like a big hammer and nail, believe it or not. That's all that thing is doing, is hammering nails right into the earth. And you could see why they need to do that, because it is right next to the bay. So yeah, this is going to be built like a brick schoolhouse. How about that? I'll clean it up for you. This is going to be built like a brick schoolhouse. So yeah, I'm sure this is the only building around this area that's going to have piles that go this deep into the ground. So on this video, you are only seeing one pile being driven. That's correct. So you think, well, how many piles did this guy video on this? How many piles were driven on this video? Just this one. So you can see that it takes quite a long time to drive one pile. And it's just like I said, a big old concrete, I want to say just a big concrete column with a couple rebar, I want to say rebar sticking out of it so they can attach the steel. So it's all pretty basic work. You just stick something deep into the earth where the foundation isn't going to move around and build on top of that. So I wonder how many years they've been pile driving like this. And here's a good shot of that big hammer going up and down and just slamming that thing into the ground. I'm always amazed on how much noise and how accurate they are. And just remember, all those things have to be right on point. They can't be off by an inch, just because this building is designed for each one of those things to go in the exact spot so they can build on top of it. And if you know me, that building has got to be right where it's got to be right on point, as they say. So there is a good example. I got my old zoomer out, and I'm going to let you see how fast that thing is piling, driving it into the ground. And if you look real close here, he's putting a level on to the side of the beam right there, and he's telling the pile driver, push up or forward or back. So see that level he has in his hand? That's how you keep those piles from going straight into the ground. You don't want them off by 1 inch. They got to be straight up and down. So, and that makes sense. You don't want a leaning tower of Pisa as a school. So there you go. They have it marked on the driver itself how many feet it's into the ground. So you would think that they would get it about halfway off and break it down. Nope. That concrete is going to go all the way into the ground, believe it or not. By the end of this video, you will not see any of that. Isn't that amazing that they're going to have all that into the ground by the end of this video? But there you go. That's how much it's going down, 1 inch at a time. And I would say it's not more than an inch at a time. I think it is probably 1 inch per bang. What do you think? I'll be quiet and you count. 1, 2, 3. So it is about 1 bang per second. 1001, 1002, 1003. Yep. So 1 bang per inch. So how many inches are in 20 feet? And that should tell you how many bangs. How many licks to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Well, that question is still unanswered. And how many bangs for a pile to be driven into the ground? And do the workers on the ground count the bangs? So I'm sure you got some bang counters, as they call them. So anyway, I'm always amazed that these people can work so long and listen to this loud noise. I know they have hearing protection, but that can only do so much. And they have eye protection and foot protection, but it is loud. And me being so far away, I still heard it. And I think next time I go here, I'm going to bring some earplugs. But I think this will probably be the last pile driving video I make. You never know, but it can't be too interesting to film twice. But I tell you what, I do like to see the progress of this whole project. Before, it was a 2-story, 3-story school that I thought they were going to rebuild. But boy, was I wrong. They tore it down, and there is new structures going in its place. And it's always just neat to see progress and hear the guys that worked on this project watch these videos. So thank you guys for watching it. I ran into the crane operator. Actually, that's what he is. If you see that pile driver, he's actually considered a crane operator. And it makes sense. That's just a big crane, don't you think? Holding up a big weight. The only difference between this crane and a normal crane operator is this one has a big hammer and nail attached to it. So, well, there's the outline of the new administration building, and there's that old tree. They kept that little tree next to the building. I like to see that. I was afraid they were going to tear that tree out, but boy, does that tree have history. So I think right there at the gate is where they're going to build the new auditorium, but don't take my word for that. But look at all those people that have to hear that banging 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but I'm sure 9 hours a day, because these guys were definitely working long hours from when I started the Mills on Wheels until late in the day. So, yeah, they worked more than 8 hours for sure. Well, there you go. There is a good look at the old Willsey School once again. The whole track, the baseball fields, and these baseball fields get a lot of use. The whole neighborhood was hard to find parking, so a lot of people use this track and field. So there you go, Willsey School with the Oakland in skyline in the background. And boy, this is where I kind of fought the wind. So if you're going to be flying that high with a drone, you got to be careful, because you could see that it's kind of hard to get back. And if it ever starts blowing away your drone, here's a pro tip for you. Stick your drone into sport mode. That's right. So if your drone will not come back because the wind is so high, stick it into sport mode, and that will make your drone fly faster against the wind. Pro tip. But I didn't have to do that this day, but I did get a little concerned, so I said I better get this drone back close to the job site, because you get it over those apartments, you're not going to get it back if it falls out of the air. Right here I can go and retrieve it if anything happens, but I don't want to think that way. Okay, well, this pile driver is almost into the ground, and we can just about finish this video. But before we do, I'm going to do a little what do you call this? A close-up / circular. Oh, they call this an orbit move, where you orbit around the action. But you can see there's that big pile driver right on the ground. Look at the one they have ready for the next one. I think that was the last one they were going to do for the day. But yeah, that'll show you how long these pile drivers are. Now this guy's sitting on the bucket. You can see the guy at the bottom of your screen sitting on the bucket. Well, I was always told, don't sit down on the job site. You always stand up. You never want to be caught sitting down. So that is not a good look for. So all you you newbies, I guess they call them newbies. All you new guys on the job site, make sure you stay on your feet and don't look at your phone. So some people just like to sit and watch, where it's easier to look like you're busy if you're standing on your feet. Well, there's my zoom lens. That's about as zoomy as I can get. Look how I'm about 10 feet away from that thing, it seems like. I do like that zoom lens. I kind of don't use that enough, but there you go. I liked how you could see the ball players way back there. You can almost see the baseball. That's how zoomy that is. But there it is, the hammer hitting the head. So they have like a little cap that goes around that concrete so they don't bust up the top. And yeah, we were here for the full. See that guy sitting on the bucket? Yeah, that's just not a good look, is it? These guys moving stuff around, staying busy. That's how you want to be. Those guys, look at, he's kind of just messing around, but he's staying busy. And he's talking to the boss man saying, hey, there's a drone in the air and he's watching you, so just stay busy, don't be sitting. So that even the boss man knows that somebody's watching. So there's not a lot of time to be messing around when there's a pile being driven. But that guy found a bucket to sit on, so I bet you he'll be the first one. When times get slow, they'll let go. Usually that's what happens, is the bucket sitters, well, they're the first ones to go, because the boss knows that if they're sitting while they're working, well, they're sitting while they're resting, if that makes any sense. But there's a good zoom of the baseball players. Look how far. I could almost get a peeping Tom shot with that one, that's for sure. So these drones are made for good, not evil. So remember that. All you perverts out there, don't be getting one of these drones to zoom in on kids playing. This is all about construction and men working. Remember that. As I deepen my voice like this. Yeah, men stuff. So unfortunately for all you women out here, you don't see too many women on the job site. Now, is that discrimination, or is that just the sign of the times where the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion is running rapid? So they have women on the job site that aren't able to lift the weight that it is required to be on a job site. Now they say women and men are equal, and I have to disagree with that because of how men have different bodies. So women are better nurturers and planners, so there are room for women on the job site, but it's not out in the field. It's more in the planning in the office. I know that sounds male chauvinist, but when you're working out here with all these big, whoa, I almost crashed my drone right there. I hit the wrong button and went forward, and you can see the smoke. That's how close I was to the thing. So the sensors on my drone didn't work, or they did work, but boy, was that close. That's what I get for talking about how women and men are different. A woman probably wouldn't have done that. She probably would have crashed the drone right into it. What? I'm just joking, just joking. Don't take everything so hard around here. But yeah, that was a close call, and it was my fault. But the first thing I did was let go of the buttons. So whenever you get into a close call by hitting a tree, or you just stop and think, what do I need to do to get out of that situation? And my first instinct was to stop and then go forward because I knew nothing was in front of me. So each time you fly your drone, you are taking a risk of crashing it and it blowing away and it losing signals. So if you have anxiety, you might want to think twice about flying a drone because, yeah, unless you have money to burn, you don't want to be losing these expensive toys. And that's what they are, basically, toys. So if you fly a drone, you might want to think again about getting insurance, making sure that you have your name on it in case it crashes. And I say all this for my own self. I need to take that advice. I probably should write my name and number on this drone. But in the same breath, maybe I don't, because if it ends up crashing into the construction equipment, they'll know who to blame and who to charge for lost time and material. Well, I guess I shouldn't believe everything I think. And I think that's good advice for life. I read that on the sidewalk one time. It said, don't believe everything you think. And isn't that true? We shouldn't believe everything we think because, boy, is it just wrong. Well, look at that. We're almost to the bottom of that pile. Look at that. I got my zoomer out. Now, right here, I have two lenses on this drone. I have a regular lens and a zoomer. I think that's even the name of it. But I got the zoomer lens, and you can see that the rebar of the pile drive right next to the one that they're doing. So those pile drivers are about probably 3 feet apart. And there's that hammer chugging and chugging. Gravity doing its part. There really is nothing. Yeah, just a whole bunch of gravity and hydraulic oil. And it just pounds that thing right into the ground. And see that guy tugging the line? Yeah, he keeps that thing straight up and down. So you can see the rebar sticking right out the top of that pile drive. So there you go. That's it. They drove that thing all the way into the ground, didn't they? Wasn't that neat to see? The pile drive of We'll See School. And like I said, if you see all those little rebars sticking out, that's one of those 20-foot pile drives into the ground. So just a lot of work to build a school. So how long did that pile drive take? Probably about 30 minutes total, maybe an hour for them to set it up. So 1 hour per drive, I would imagine, maybe more. Who knows? Well, there you go. We'll see wood pile driving adventures. Look at how long those things are. Well, as always, I'd like to thank you again for coming along with me on these We'll See wood pile driving adventures. You know the drill. Peace, love, and all that hippie jazz. Bye-bye, everybody.